Hi and welcome to this fireside chat with me, Madeline Thomas and Victoria Nickerson, our Smart Textiles lead here at the World Textile Information Network. So last week, Victoria attended the textiles 2022 conference in Nottingham in the UK. And today we're going to quiz her on the smart textile technology there, material innovations, product development, and the user-centered design for smart textile products. And we'll also look at future market trends and end-of-life practices as well. So welcome, Victoria.
Hi, Maddie.
How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So firstly, do you just kind of want to tell us about the show? How did you find it?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it was held on the 9th and 10th of November in Nottingham. It was also online as well. It was a really interesting conference, and some of the key areas they sort of covered during it was sensing and embedded systems, manufacturing, sustainability, design and fashion, and also sort of immersive technologies. So I'd say whilst sort of the main focus, there are a lot of academic developments there, and we saw sort of presentations from universities from Nottingham, Southampton, MIT, UCLA, and these also varied from sort of poster presentations as well. And alongside the academics, we had speeches from experts in the commercial sphere, so people from companies like Born in Germany and Prevail in the UK, and they spoke about sort of production and commercialization challenges. We also had someone from the IPC who spoke about standards and sort of updated ones. And then there's also a representative from Tesla Suit, and they spoke about sort of smart textiles for healthcare and improving quality of life.
Okay, and if we start, I guess, by dissecting the academia side of it, were there any academic developments of note, anything that you thought, I guess, was particularly innovative or could be disruptive in the market?
Yeah, so I mean, everything there was really interesting, and there's a lot of stuff on sort of sensing technologies, smart bandages for wound care, printed wearables, electroluminescent displays, flexible circuits, so many on those kind of things. But one that I found particularly interesting was from John Ho from the National University of Singapore, and he spoke about wireless connectivity with metamaterials.
Sorry, I'm a bit of a layman when it comes to smart textiles. Can you go into a bit about what metamaterials are? Explain that for people.
Yeah, so essentially, metamaterials are materials that are engineered with sort of customized properties that aren't found in naturally occurring materials. So they might be made from multiple elements from composite materials like metals or plastic. And they're sort of usually designed with specific sort of micro or nanoscale patterns or structures. And this allows them to interact with sort of and manipulate wave-based phenomena, so like electromagnetic or acoustic waves. So I guess for this innovation, John and his team looked into using metamaterials to connect multiple sensors around the body for monitoring purposes. And they really wanted to design clothing that interacts with sort of wireless signals in a wireless way. And so they could sort of control signal movement around the body and essentially sort of make them more effective. And so usually with sort of on-body sensors that like those in sort of smartwatches and things that connect to mobiles, they use radio waves like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. But these sort of radio waves radiate outwards, meaning a lot of the energy is usually lost to the surrounding area. And this kind of reduces the efficiency of wearable technology because the battery life is sort of consumed trying to connect to these other devices. And this also can mean sort of the signals that they're giving off are insecure, meaning that people could pick them up or eavesdrop. So I guess with this kind of development from the University of Singapore, they kind of explain that with metamaterials, they've sort of designed them and integrated them into garments in such a way that sort of creates surface waves, and they kind of glide wirelessly around the body via clothing rather than sort of radiating outwards. So this means that the energy is held close to the body and isn't lost sort of to the surrounding environment. And I guess one of the sort of main inspirations for this, they sort of mentioned, comes from near field communication. This is the kind of technology that's used in your smartphones, you know, when you're sort of paying for something with your phone, and it sort of powers cards and transfers data. So this kind of technology usually works within sort of 5 to 10 centimeters of a transmitter, and it works at a lot lower frequency than either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. So the researchers thought they could kind of use this concept in their sensor system with metamaterials. And they found out alongside these materials, they could use near field communication transmitters, such as a phone, that could actually power these sensors around the body in a more efficient way.
And what is the potential for this technology in the smart textiles industry, do you feel?
So I guess, well, the researchers have sort of said that this innovation could allow for the transmission of data between devices at power levels that are potentially 1,000 times reduced compared to other examples. So this could mean that wearables could be powered in a much more sort of efficient way that requires less energy to do so. And I think the other interesting aspect comes from data privacy. So this method allows devices to connect in a more sort of private way by confining sort of the communication signals to within 10 centimeters of the body. And I think this could be really important in areas where data privacy and security have been like a big issue, I guess. So with sort of healthcare devices or devices for the military and defense markets. So where sort of, I guess, data privacy and things make it a big barrier to entry when you're trying to develop smart textiles products. So potentially this technology, could enable more market acceptance if it's developed in a commercial setting.
Hmm. Okay. And if we move on to talk about sustainability, if that's okay. Obviously, that is something that across industries is a key focal point and has been for quite some time now, but specifically now, we have COP27 at the moment, etc. How was sustainability addressed at the conference? I know in the smart textiles industry with sustainability, there's a lot discussed around design and I guess designing in sustainability initiatives.
Yeah, so we know smart textiles or sustainability around smart textiles is quite a big quite a big topic. And with the launch of new products or commercial developments, people are always going to ask, end of life issues, how do we sort of separate this, how do we recycle this, things like that. And with products in the smart textile sector, we know that's quite difficult when you're combining sort of electronic componentry with textiles. And in most cases, when you're developing a smart textiles product, you might be focusing on sort of the functionality aspects, durability, reliability. Sustainability can sometimes take, a backseat to those considerations. So I guess during the conference, people did actually sort of discuss this in a way of designing products that incorporate sustainable practices. I think one talk by Elena Illen from the University of Catalonia, she kind of suggested ways that sustainability could be brought into more of the design kind of side of smart textiles. So I guess the first way was sort of suggesting that these kind of smart products are viewed as a service rather than sort of a throwaway product. So design should really focus on things such as supporting and prolonging the use time of the product. So, offering updates or repairs to keep them in use. Another route she kind of discussed was applying eco-design principles from the start. So this includes, thinking about the principles of repair, reuse, recycle, or disassembling a product at the end of life. And I think this was quite an interesting point for smart textiles because as we've sort of seen and reported on in the last few years, people are kind of looking at smarter and more seamless integration techniques. So, incorporating electronic elements into fibers and yarns at sort of the micro and nano scale. But this can obviously make it quite difficult to sort of disassemble, I guess, at end of life or recycle. So the researchers were sort of saying maybe focus on other methods like lamination, where the conductive components can be removed by delamination, or even using components like fasteners, so that electronic component can kind of been snapped off and removed from the textile, so that can be recycled or reused. I think the final thing she sort of mentioned in the eco-design strategy was using sort of renewable or regenerated resources. And I know this is a topic we've covered quite a bit on WTAN, and we've recently sort of published a report on bio-based materials for smart textiles, and this discusses sort of the use of bio-based materials for electronics, such as sort of carbon black, graphene, and conductive polymers. And we've also actually got a follow-up report on this coming out soon on degradable materials, and this will focus on sort of alternative ones that can be used for electronic components that can either biodegrade or be recycled at end of life.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned before about sustainability being a challenge for smart textile companies. What other challenges face the smart textile industry if we think about product development?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest ones that sort of came up in the conference and also you can sort of see in the industry is usability and wearability. And I think one of the sort of talks that most exemplified this, I guess, was from Martin Ashby, and he was from Prevail. And he gave a speech on sort of bringing smart textiles to the mass consumer market and how we could apply sort of user-centered design to overcome some of these challenges. So we know there's sort of definitely a demand for smart textiles and wearables, I mean, market predictions at the moment are sort of ranging from $42 billion to 118 billion by 2028. But a lot of the companies that are sort of making revenue in this space are generally smartwatch manufacturers. So we've seen Fitbit and Garmin. And I think Ashby's talk was discussing why smart clothing hasn't kept pace with these companies. So I guess he started off by saying, well, started speaking about how smart garments and products don't often meet the requirements for users. So in some instances, they might be quite difficult to wear with sort of bulky componentry that's made up of plastic or that are worn in pockets. And these don't necessarily look or feel or have the same comfort as a traditional garment. And also they're not great in situations like sports or defense where, this kind of bulkiness can get in the way of the activity you're actually trying to carry out. Also, they can maybe take a long time to put on or even calibrate sort of the electronic section. So it's not really a gap and go solution. Another sort of, challenge is the cost of smart textiles. At the moment, electronic devices and components are quite expensive. So some between, $200 to $500 for a smart garment, and it's not necessarily something that's available for the mass consumer market. And then finally, sort of big one is the kind of data side of these products. So there can often be like a lot of information on these apps, and it's quite hard for consumers to kind of digest them, and it doesn't necessarily give them a lot of added value. So if you can't really understand the metrics, then it might be more suitable to sort of professionals, not necessarily just beginners who are trying to improve their fitness. So I guess what Martin Ashby was trying to say was, how do we sort of tackle these kind of things? And I think a few of examples were, as sort of mentioned before, was creating different interfaces and connect electronics in perhaps a more seamless way. But again, sustainability might come into question there. But just having kind of these clothing that aren't going to interfere with activities, and the garments are going to look like, just your traditional clothing with hidden electronics. And we've actually also got a report out on this at the moment, which is designing smart textiles for sort of comfort, aesthetics, and functionality. He also mentioned about sort of the easy care and use of the garment, to making sure users actually know how to use it. It's easy to take on and off, and it's washable. And that's obviously really important for garments that are going to be like used on for prolonged period of times, like medical sportswear. And then I guess another big thing is the insight on these connected apps. They should be used to sort of educate and empower consumers. And so it's about making sort of whatever insights coming out of them relevant for users' lifestyle and ability levels. And I guess finally, probably the more difficult one to combat here would be the price point. So he sort of says they should be at a sensible price point to sort of meet the mass market, but obviously this can be difficult to achieve due to some of the things I mentioned earlier. But maybe as this market expands, we might see a lower price point, especially with sort of large scale production techniques, and if they start to emerge.
So if we go back to cost, then not the price point, but the actual cost points that you're talking about, with the ongoing energy crisis, do you think that will affect the smart manufacturers, in the same way that it's affected the traditional textile manufacturers? And also, do you see a demand for smart textiles going up because of this as well, in that, we're increasingly looking for what the people in industry are now calling a warm wardrobe, because people can't afford heating, so maybe they're more likely to buy a garment that is conductive, that can keep them warm, for example.
Yeah, I mean, talking to some of the people in the industry, cost of electronics is definitely sort of hampering development at the moment, and that could be something going forward. Maybe it's looking for more sort of closer to home manufacturers to keep costs down. And I think as well, the supply chain in general for smart textiles can be quite difficult, as it's not always very established. That might also provide challenges for manufacturers at the moment. But as you say, with sort of the cost of living, heating, things like that, you never know, smart textiles might have kind of resurgence, especially for heated smart textiles, when you're thinking of blankets, coats, gloves, that kind of thing. Definitely, because we kind of saw that trend, I guess, during COVID, where you kind of had the demand for smart sportswear because we weren't able to do certain things outside. So it might have the same kind of knock-on effect here.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also, do you see, where do you see the regulations debate going? Because we keep hearing a lot about regulations in the smart textile industry, and what's your viewpoint on that?
Do you mean in terms of sustainability?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of brought up, I guess, in the conference as well, especially as, smart textiles sits at the intersection of two industries and it hasn't really got clear guidelines at the moment for sustainability. I mean, if you look at standards in general, they're still quite new for just even explaining what a smart textile is. So it is going to be interesting to see with sort of stricter sustainability rules and regulations like the EU kind of producer responsibility scheme and things like that, how it is going to affect smart textile development with this mix of two industries, definitely.
Mhm. Okay, and just finally then, because I know we're running out of time, can you give us a bit of insight on future trends in the market?
I guess a big one that sort of came out of it was collaboration. So I know there's sort of collaboration obviously between the textiles and electronics sector that needs to grow a little bit more, especially when we're talking about production, supply chains and things like that. But there was also a discussion about having sort of collaboration with other industries. So, healthcare experts, sports experts, and things like that to really sort of advance, I guess, improve product design and development for these kind of things. And that should also help, I guess, market development because they're going to know what, what a customer actually really needs from the sort of professional side of things down to more, I guess, amateur users. And I guess with collaboration as well, another one would be collaboration between the academic kind of side of things and industrial, because I think often we see so many interesting developments from the academic world, but it's often so difficult to sort of commercialize them or even know where to go to commercialize them. So I think really bringing these two together would sort of develop the market a lot more.
Mhm. And talking of collaboration in the industry and bringing people together, I wondered if you wanted to just for a minute or two, just want to do a bit of a shameless pitch on our smart textiles database, because that is kind of what it aims to do within the industry, isn't it? To kind of bridge that gap between textiles and technology, and to bring people together in the industry.
Yeah, so I guess one of our recent developments is the Smart Textiles database, and this is kind of, I guess, a tool for people in the industry looking for the different kind of components that you use to make smart textile products. So we kind of wanted to have a system where it's all in one place, so you can come on, and if you need sort of fibers, yarns, threads, inks, pastes, it has a wide variety of products on there. So you're able to sort of choose maybe your application or the kind of end use industry you're looking for, the type of material, and you can kind of filter that down using our database and sort of meet manufacturers who are producing those products. And in that way, we're kind of hoping to bridge that gap, I guess, between the kind of developers, the manufacturers, and suppliers of these products, and hopefully, help people be able to develop them and bring them to market.
How exciting. Thank you so much, Tori, and thank you for all your insights today. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We hope that you have found it informational, if not very exciting. So thank you, everyone, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.